Oh, there are intelligence families near me who in my schools can pass the recording, demonstrate, confirm from off my campuses. There are intelligence families that grew up near me. I don't know where they live now, and there are people that still live here that are associated with the Wethersfield Police Department, and a whole bunch of people tied to them who intercities planted evidences, and the interbranch are refusing to identify themselves, and now they are fishing like all kinds of PH fishing with the P and fishing with the F. In other words, for cover, they're interbranch, switch names, forged names on all sides of criminal and civil cases. The interbranch, a whole bunch of countries involved with them. People with the name O'Brien, Fox Connecticut News, and buildings next to them, and next to which is next to the state capitol. They're increasingly involved with people involved with the syntax with the Board of Education. See, they have comments blocked not for legitimate reasons. They have Facebook pages of the campuses with retired police chiefs, like a police chief Centron, has a whole bunch of people tied to them, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. A whole bunch of people with people on my street, like Reno Mazzucato recorded confessed, didn't sought me out to record. The only time I never saw him on campus I went in my life. He saw me out. In other words, on Route 175, he tried in conjunctions to that and to that. They've been planting evidence as fake things, increasing with people named Demoro, Kaloa, Ajama. I never saw him around Kaloa. He used to repeat his name to me. And he wasn't even my grade. And then they made me stay back with one lady's recorded involved with Washington, D.C. 2 times I had a speech class teacher. It's recorded. There's people in the background with seating classes, measuring where everyone's going to walk. Because this breaching method has them using live progressions where they're putting fake things in databases next to each of the campuses. Increasingly, a Harris family, a Kevin Harris, has a family involved with a Leahy family, and with further sexual and medical offenders of kids, and they have their own little kids involved, and they faced conversations with me. They have multiple courts, judges, and prosecutors, and their extended family members, collusions with them through time. A whole bunch of people involved with predicate acts on my street per a method. These are people involved, also united by as people that are tied to the people that were next to my hotel room, and on names at all sides of the Ninth Circuit Court, right next to the World Trade Center towers, the morning of the attack. And then we left before the attack, but we were in the court next to it. I was an observer there with others. I noticed it's recorded since too. Because Central Connecticut State University forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded those names involved on all sides of the case there. And the court had proven afterwards someone had changed the timing of the legal papers from inside the court to make them appear as if they've been handed in late to the court, to the panel of judges that saw it right before the World Trade Center attack from inside the court. So inside the court's identity and names on all sides of that case have and have had collusion /S with Central Connecticut State University and other with Trinity College in Yukon, with people from Saudi Arabia, people from Italy, people from the border countries and the border states that have been grouped countries and roles with differences, cover-ups. They have roles with like psychiatry, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw. They just jump in and they go, oh, take your meds. These are people putting fake uses of drugs and alcohol and medications. And they're also making mistakes with medications on purpose, all kinds of things. All kinds of people were hurt by Hartford Hospital, like a dozen people involved with more crimes than there are against more people than there are streets in Hartford and houses on them. It's not by accident the same names, intercities and intra-cities with names next to campuses. They're even recorded on Facebook, involved with federal evidences, crimes, and people next to body dumping spots. including reported murderers who had collusions at those spots with the people that are housing their prisons, who also use charges like who put charges in no writing, like, and they force people to jail with huge bonds, say, and now they're not even charged for anything. And people that are charged, they're torturing them under the guise of corrections, like the serial killer and other people involved with other body dumping spots and different reported killers tied to that same spot, who are also increasingly the ones recorded on my street planting fake ties, fake natures ties to me. There's a Robert Rodriguez recorded on Facebook, confirmed on Facebook. He had been influenced to plant evidence on my street with people named tomorrow involved with the FBI director, Robert Luskin. He confirmed about his roles with an untimely death on Facebook and his confession to I didn't respond when he was on my street, on a field across the street, exploiting that difference. To put fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. Rick Cianfaglione also has recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed things that my intelligence families near me recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They put fake things in the databases. And people said something about why and how I sat. I sat in the wall during recess because I didn't want to hurt Tim O'Brien's feelings. He wanted to run around on and some girl wanted to run around on a horse and scream like a little girl. In other words, I don't know. And they were doing that too. It wasn't even my class. And that was the only time I saw him. I just went away and never saw him. I never saw him around school. One time he came out and said something to me that could look like we had a conversation, and he contorted his voice. He went like, my family or police or something like that. I don't know what and to make things up. These are increasingly people tied to Rick Cianfaglione said it's tied to a Leahy family and a Brian Silver. That's recorded. A whole bunch of people tied to a Brian Silver with Harper Courts, New Britain Superior Court, and the District Court involved before and after the World Trade Center attack with predicate acts at West Hartford locations, with people who were also at New Britain locations in intercities and intrust cities, collusions with databases. This Leahy family pretended they had conversations with me, and WFSB stole my identity with them. They have roles with foreign and domestic military and the Saudi attackers. A whole bunch of people tied to a Mark Violet and Mike Violet, and their roles with intelligence next to Hartford Hospital, with the houses and businesses there involved with child abusers, leaders, and kids years apart for a forest, and their roles with people at religious spots and corners of streets tied to that. There are people at corners of streets that Mark Violet sought me out to make confessions. I didn't know he was tied to my neighbors. Then I found out about that. And that was after, I'd been in high school for a year and I never had a class with him. Never saw him around campus. They tried to make a quick exception with him and with others involved with some black KKK Confederate flag theme, foreign and domestic, with the houses and businesses next to the campuses in intercities and in trust cities, involved with identity theft fraud standards with them. They have people on Zion Street that they've been involved with identity theft fraud standards with them. An Oliveri family has rules with a Joshua Stryker, with a Dean Alford, that a Dean Judd and his with Central Connecticut City University, his son, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with some murders and confessions tied to that. And so, in other words, in World Trade Center predicate acts roles. This is before the World Trade Center attack. I tried to get help from someone because I didn't want to, make it criminal the way the police do. So I went to a doctor, and I barely spoke with him at all. He made all kinds of confessions to fill up the time about his kids too. They bring their kids into branch, and the names of the people of sciences using the I'm a pantheist, but I believe that Allah or Muhammad is the last messenger, in that this is about the sabotage of the science about that one identity of value progression that is not our individual species body, made up of a whole bunch of individual species, individual bodies. It is not the other species' bodies made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies, but it is an individual identity of value progression that is a scientific value shown to the mind. It is generating why and how we have black pupils, whites of eyes. And all exceptions come with demonstration / S of the same thing, which is it's why birds and fish have two eyes. They only invented that. They didn't invent that, and where and how they did. All those exceptions, exception nature, come with demonstration / S of that one identity of value progression that has us distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous. It has a further distinct identity of simultaneous nature. Now, people can say, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Let's focus on the predicate acts. That's what I'm trying to talk about. Interbranch have been forging names and switching names. A police chief, Centron, has rules with predicate acts with facts on my street, with people tied to them, involved with multiple child abusers, leaders, and kids years apart, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and with their educators, that I never even had conversations with, who have been putting fake things in databases behind people's backs and being kept only capable of that per a method. So you guys are preventing mandated law, and you have a Michael Emmett further with multiple agencies. The CIA is also with the syntax of people with the state police families, interstates, involved with overt criminal enterprises, private and the border countries, and people that have roles of the predicate acts when I was a kid, and people that I never tried to seek out. Anytime there was an exception after that, they tried to use that exception too to hide that. So you could discern. We could discern there's hyper-evidential things recorded. How a breaching method keeps the branches of government at countries A criminally foreign influenced / hyper-criminally foreign influenced, and blaming the prior. Blaming criminal foreign influences until that's correct, and countering it as collusion / S with the hyper-foreign breaching method. That's what's observable. It's discernible where and how you guys have replaced what our founders communicated about why and how there were more than 13 colonies entrenched with slavery, even northern colonies and southern colonies. And everyone was collusion / S with that, and only allowed to be and censoring anyone. It's not just that one thing. Oh, they said slavery. That's a separate subject. It's inseparable from the Native American breaching method against, and when you pay attention to that properly, it brings up how that same breaching method was leveraged against every modern country. In other words, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to blame other things, others, or selves for things that nature is and has been demonstrating. Having black pupils, whites of eyes, while fish have two eyes as well, distinct but non-distinct. It's all about relativity / hyper-relativity. So the people at polling locations, increasingly, Kevin Harris and a Leahy family have roles with the intelligence families at Quinnipiac University involved with organized crimes. All ages and natures of campuses, though. And their roles also with the daughter of a principal at one of the campuses, involved also with a Mr. Abruzzi, who was brought in by confessions by students before and after I was in his class. They didn't use his name. These are ones involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and a bunch of rape confessions and things like that associated with a Joe DeMauro, a John DeMauro, and their roles, in other words, with people pretending they want privacy so they can fake things. In other words, that's why they don't really want privacy. These are people tied to former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, Dawn LaConch. I never saw her inside of a campus in my life. I walked by her real quick on the porch of Heather Hansen, which was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They were planting evidences with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and proven child abusers, leaders of kids first forced years apart, and people interbranch, forging and switching names, all kinds of federal evidence crimes with them, and people on up the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices involved. All they have to do, that's why they have, that's really why they have the Board of Education meetings with the posts, the ability to post block. Oh, because people will be mean. If people are mean, that's against the law. See, they can't obey. We go into it, and then it gets complicated because you guys are getting into it dishonestly. You guys are sequence shifting. So you guys are also leaking how the fire departments too. They've been keeping records dishonestly. Then they go quote statistics. Get them on paper, one name into this branch, and have the Andy O'Brien and Tim O'Brien and their family get the heck away from law, and have them say sorry to the people, and get them on paper with the rest of the people, with this Phil Cololo, with Whiting Forensics, further involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, drugs and medicines crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, falsified police reports, refusing to identify themselves, as time collusions with all kinds of, even a rape threat on Facebook to me, with New Britain Superior Court, involved with the people like with the Kerr family and the DeMoro family, with sexual and medical offenders of kids years apart, first forced, and former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, their family members. They have educators. They also force the collusions with them, and they have people named, directly and indirectly tied to further leaders of the kids and their family members. You guys need to get them on paper, one name and sequence. Wethersfield Police also have their Facebook page, and the Britain Superior Court has their Facebook page, involved with Predicate X with the Connecticut networks and their roles with and as names next to them. The difference of the guilt of the names at the networks are next to them. A Peruta family sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. I did not respond. They don't know me. They put fake transcripts if they pretended of. They have judges involved and the lawyers of Wethersfield Police, of the F.B.I, former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin. His lawyer, he was warned, if he says, oh, that wasn't my lawyer, though, he was warned not to show up to that case by a Judge Nations or a Judge Winter in a 2006 district court case in New Haven, Connecticut. He has a Thaddeus Grabowski right before that, involved next to Fox Connecticut News, with people on Hangdog Lane and conjunctions to it and to that, like the Burlington Turnpike before the heart of Hartford, and like Route 3, and like the state judicial branch offices. People all along Route 3 have roles with a police chief Cintron and a Mazzucato bakery where it is now and where it used to be, by police that recorded them involved with switching names and forging names. They've been putting fake things in databases and acting tied to it, and then acting fake on Facebook. And they also move as families. No. Where they're covering up live progressions at each age and nature of campus, including fire campuses and medical campuses. So a Leahy family is further involved with the family of a police chief Cintron. I believe one's named Mazzucato. And there's a Maiano family also with intelligence, and a bunch of people who had conversations with Modern Pastry, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, falsified police reports, and their roles with child abusers and with the retired police chiefs, like with the Maiano family. Please, Modern Pastry, get the Maiano family and the police chief Citron on paper. Some Mendez police also faked conversations with me at the police station as an adult, and they forced Saudis to collusion with them. Saudis that my Saudi friend that they knew before I did. I found more about that. People with the name Scalora and DeMoro. People with the name Cololo and DeMoro said that's their shared cousin, Scalora. Scalora, I never had a class with a Scalora. I never had. I don't know if Clyde Scalora went to Central Connecticut State University. I never saw her on that campus in my life. Subby Bugerio, I never saw Subby Bugerio though. Subby Bugerio is one of the people that was recorded, confessed by people at and next to Central Connecticut State University, involved with them with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and all kinds of with judges, prosecutors, people with the courts, with the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices, increasingly all kinds of organized crime methods. And then they have the audacity to speak about crimes because they were child abuse for what I caught them doing with the campuses. So there are people named Demoro and Schedule who have some for, and I never had a conversation with the people named Schedule. They have rules with some probate court judges and their extended family members, collusions with each other and with the mayors and all along roads and routes with their relative identity, theft, fraud, slanders, and their rules with triages interstates as people time collusions with people from the bordering states and the bordering countries with identity theft, fraud, slanders, differences, rackets. These are people of faith when they speak. They don't even realize, too, though. That's why and how. In other words, whether you're labeled black or white, you know you have black pupils, whites of eyes. And not one person is white or black. And not just that is left out, or how a breaching method reassign that when nature communicates with this. We're supposed to see the whites of eyes and allow someone to have free speech if they want to debate. It means more than that. It was more probably about how the breaching method, because our founders declassified this, but rather than appreciate that, they have self-guided roles using our founders' words, pretending that anyone had free speech, including them. And then James Madison, he's the only founder we know the name of, and then he was a president / chief too. He still didn't have free speech. They left us to classify the means to correlate that. Black pupils. And we have declassified the means to explain that. No one had free speech. There was a torture, extortion, fact cheating nature, slavery, therefore physical slavery method. Entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies, more than 13. And it wasn't just the international companies and countries individually grouped it together. No, tactical ulterior from how nature uses group differences. Because it has individual species bodies made up of a whole bunch of individuals. It's the one generating the group differences because it has totally different individual species bodies. Each one, baby, that's what is an individual identity of volume progression. That is no other identity of volume, but is all things anyway. In many boxing. So the identities of law never learned. The names of the people of the sciences never learned how to speak for them legitimately. And then they went and spoke about things like crimes anyway, the way the breaching method showed them. And they had self-guided roles, or they were sensing for the breaching method, relative to how it stayed. So before and after the World Trade Center attack, Central Connecticut State University had and has adults, whether they're on the campus or we look at it that way though, because they're involved with child abuse with leaders of kids, we're the ones involved here. Adults and kids make confessions and demonstrations to me that are relative in their roles with people named Scalora, interstates and international, time collusions with the World Trade Center attackers, and their roles next to WFSB with a bunch of people tied to a Claudia Scalora and people and a Joe Demoro. And the syntax repeated to me about how she had sex with a Joe Demoro, her cousin, by one of the people they forced to collusions with some Mendez police too, with the Wethersfield Police Department and the state judicial branch offices, and the Britain Superior Court and their hallway. All kinds of corruption with the Britain Superior Court before and after the World Trade Center attack. That was off the records. Then they had, after the World Trade Center attack, a bunch of arrests of me, and they do these name switching and forging. And while they're stacking more and more fake things in databases, then they say, then they have problems. And there's different, how come these people were let off and they were arrested? Because they're arresting people fake to cover, they're hiding their collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, even including the people trying their hardest to counter the problems with the borders and the overt criminal enterprise, private ones. They have collusions with all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes. That's not my job. Get down. Get the whole increasingly the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices and corrections offices have names on my street involved with World Trade Center predicate acts and with co-defendants and family members of former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, involved also with and as collusions with and as names next to the differences of the guilt of the names that the networks are next to them. And then they lie about, oh, you're attacking us, calling us guilty. You attach me to fake conversations with you, fake ties to your sources, the other networks. People with the name O'Neill have West Hartford campuses further involved with their kids in Wethersfield, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with the networks, F.B.I, other agencies planting evidences. These are the people leaking this. You guys are the ones who have a Ruth. There's a Ruth that was a relative of a former Wethersfield mayor. And there are people, conjunctions to the family members and person of a former Mayor Gold is increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, federal evidences, crimes, with people tied to a Joe Aiello, like a Ray Collo and a Joe DeMauro. And he said a Christopher Cullen too. Christopher Cullen is recorded involved. I never saw him inside of a campus. I never, he's one of the ones involved with a Jennifer Smith and a Judge Smith with houses near me, and people involved with the further leaders of the kids and their kids being coached to sense and sensibilities or PPA things and to deny their obligation to respond to me. See, and no, get them on paper, one name and sequence, and unblock the Board of Education posts. You guys have too many natures of organized crimes at once. And readings of laws, statutes, and precedents, criminally foreign tactically delusions raw. So make sure that that Reno Mazzucato doesn't pretend he knows me, and he demonstrates that I want to know him, planting evidence, and his sister is involved too with New West Hartford locations, intercities, and along the Stolstein Highway, with the shopping centers and malls. And the people involved with the police chief Cintron, little coward, get on paper, one name and sequence with the people forging and switching names and making confessions about that. They said they only have one officer named McGee. They confessed they had different officers using his name on the same arrest. And falsified police reports too, with charges but no writing, because you guys are caught. Now boxing is fought but by the rules. But the rules have stayed abridged since some ancient times. Prepare your mind. New York City. Is there not one person from New York City with the courage enough to get me the name, to tell me who disbelieves, so I could address their criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw collusions, as the people switching names into branch and refusing writing so they could stack more fake collusion /s into databases, and then they have the audacity to think that they could speak about crimes. See, predicate acts. I'm not even a lawyer. Watch what I caught them doing with lawyers, too. Ugh.